Oh, we're live. Hey, what's up, brother? How you doing?
What's up, man? How are
Good,
you?
good.
It's been a
Good.
week. It's been a
It
week.
has been. It's been a week. It's been a long week. A lot going on in the world. You know, our prayers and thoughts go out to all those out there in California, battling in LA, battling the fires. It's awful. Hope they get contain that stuff. We get a lot of those fires in Washington as well during the fire season, not necessarily in December, but in the fire season, all it does is rain right now. It's raining right now. It rains all the time. So, but we kind of get that. Obviously, not
Yeah,
burning down homes. That's a really big deal. But yeah, definitely thinking about them. Um,
absolutely.
a lot going on. A lot going on. But it's funny. One of the things I was thinking about before we pressed play on this is that I was kind of reflecting, ruminating on where I am now versus where I was before I actually got back into the hobby. And I found that I am more isolated now. I mean, with work, I'm out and meeting with people. That's a different thing. But just take that aside, and with just my social life, I got 4 kids. We're really busy, so there really isn't one anyway. But let's just pretend for a second that that's not affecting it either. I find myself being drawn more because pre 2019, I was playing shows with the band, putting out music. We're playing concerts in front of tons of people. The thought of doing that right now is very bizarre to me. It's playing music a lot, going out and hanging out with the friends, going on trips, doing the guy times and all that stuff, going on drives with the cars. 2019, 2020 till now, it's all been my hobby has been the hobby. My time has been spent. My extra time has been spent consuming content. Has even though it's slowed down a bit since we talked about that the last time. It's been hobby content, or it's been talking, DMing, doom scrolling on Instagram, looking at eBay and looking at eBay listings and perusing eBay, perusing PWCC, all that stuff. So I feel like my life has been sort of turned inward and turned digital. So my relationships are mainly through these communications of Facebook Messenger, Instagram. I just find it interesting and fascinating. Has that been the same for you, or do you feel like you've still kind of been able to live the life you had before?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. I was playing in like sports leagues, like pre-COVID. I was playing in like the 35 plus basketball league, and I was in like a bowling league going back a few years ago because I like bowling. And that stuff has definitely shifted. And I'm just trying to think, is that like almost like is like hobby stuff? Is it just easier? It's almost like it's kind of a lazy man's hobby in a sense, to where like you don't have to, you can commit literally like on your cell phone. Like that's how, like you're in it by just scrolling eBay or watching content, or you're driving to work or whatever, and you can like be involved without having to join a team or do all these things. And I know you have small kids, and I kind of wonder too. I've got kids that are now getting, into, they've got their own sports and stuff like that. And you have the same sort of thing where you have small kids. Do you also think it might just be a function of like, there's no time for like our stuff right now, to where, like if I told my wife like, hey, I'm going to join a 35 plus league. I mean, there's a couple things there actually. Now that I'm 43, I watch guys like literally just, like guys in good shape that just like pop an Achilles, tear an ACL, pretty easily on, thinking that they can do, like make a move that they made when they were 25. Yeah. And so there's a part of me that's like, man, I can't pop an Achilles out there and deal like with all the life things I've got with kids, dog, job, like all of the stuff. So that's another reason why I'm just like, you know what, I'm just going to go to like Planet Fitness, do my thing. And I don't have to worry about, injuring myself. So that's part of it. But also like, I can't commit to anything during the week at night, and unless it's like in the house, like what I do with like a live stream or something like this. Right. The idea of like, oh, I gotta, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be gone for a couple hours. I mean, maybe, but it's way harder now than it was in the past. So I don't know. Could that be part of it?
Oh yeah, it could be part of it. I know it's kind of funny. You see, we got a kitten, and he loves to just jump up and hang out with me while I work sometimes from home. So I'm down here like feel like I'm like Dr. Evil or what? Who's that guy from Austin
Yeah,
Powers?
yeah, Mr. Bigglesworth and Austin
Mr.
Powers.
Bigglesworth. Yeah, I'm like
Dr.
sitting
Evil.
here petting the cats, and I'm just trying to keep
Yeah.
them from jumping up on the screen. Anyway, yeah, it could be that. It could be just we're just busy. We're worried about getting injured. I mean, I played in the. I'm still thinking about doing it for spring.
Yeah, you played
Summer.
baseball or softball, right?
Yeah, our softball. Yeah, men's softball, slow pitch, like it's just a U trip league. Been pretty successful with it actually. So I manage that and I've managed that team, put that team together for the past 3 or 4 years. So that's been my activity. But yeah, those are Monday nights, and I don't know if I can even still do that with all the activities we have with the kids. But I just feel like my social interactions with other people, I communicate with people in the hobby probably more than I don't know if I'd say more, but it's equal. You know, I'm talking to doing stuff
Yeah.
like that. I find myself drawn to that. Like it's like another world we can escape to, right? Which I think is kind of cool.
Totally.
And it's different, and I didn't have it before. And it's funny thinking about how it's such a big part of our lives now. We're like 5 or 6 years ago, it didn't even exist. Like we didn't even know each other. You and I didn't know each other. All these people, we didn't know each other. Now we have like, it's kind of feel like the hobby. Yeah. The Instagram hobby, the online hobbies, you know, it's not a huge world. It's a smaller world. The hobby itself is huge. It's way bigger than Instagram and the internet. I get that. It's way, 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 way bigger and deeper than that. But those interactions are pretty cool. So yeah, I kind of feel like I'm not against it. I think it's a cool addition to my life. So I was just thinking about that. Not a main topic of discussion. I just was pondering like, okay, what was it like before? What's it like now? And is it better? Is it good? I mean, are we lazier? It's just easier to go click on our phone or go on the internet and start like looking up cards and, you know, going on Blowout to learn about them, or listening to a podcast to learn about a particular set. And those usually go on for a while. So you're spending and committing some serious time to learn about them. And so it is sort of like a investment of time. And,
Yeah.
I don't regret it.
Yeah. And also too, if you think about, you know, it's not easy for guys that are in their 40s to go out and kind of get like, you know, have camaraderie, make new friends, especially our age. Like we're all kind of like set in our ways, and we have kind of our friend groups and that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And so if let's just say we're using like softball or the 35 plus men's basketball league or whatever we're talking about, like the connection is that we play basketball or softball, but if the season ends or that goes away, then it's kind of like what we're texting about like last season or something. Whereas like with hobby stuff, it's a lot easier to connect and stay connected, I feel like, because you can do it from a distance. I mean, you and I have never met in person before, and that's a lot of hobby people. You know, we talk a lot with people, whether it's on the phone or with, you know, instant message or whatever it is. And we haven't met like half of them, you know, maybe more than that in person, but you're able to connect because you connected to a player or there's certain set you like or whatever it is, as opposed to like needing it to be like a season, like an upcoming season, a sport that you're playing, to then how are we going to strategize against this team or that team? Or, oh, do you see they got a new player? You know, that, which is a lot of fun, by the way. We had in the 35 plus basketball league, the first season I played, we didn't win one game. And then we had a big guy on our team that was pretty good. His name was Pete. And we were like, hey, Pete, are you signing up next season? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll be there. And we kept on reaching out to him like during signups and stuff. And he kind of ghosted us. And then it was either the first or second season of the game, freaking Pete shows up and we're playing against Pete. He swapped teams on us. So we called him Trader Pete. And we won like, I don't know, half of our games that season, and we beat their team twice. So he actually like ghosted us to leave our team to go to a better team.
Yeah.
And so we got to rag on Trader Pete. But that's like the dumb like things that you do when you're in like an adult sports league, and that's like the connection or whatever and the trash talk. The hobby stuff allows you to do the trash talk and the goofy stupidness without having to go on a Monday night, you know, or commit to, you know, a couple nights a week or whatever, you know. So yeah, it's fun.
It is. Yeah, it's a nice escape. I definitely don't regret it. I think it's fun. I feel like things are leveling a little bit more out now that we're kind of really getting into a groove. Things are not like they used to be. Collecting is, and this kind of segues into my next topic. You got baseball season coming up. You know, we're in this full swing of basketball. Football is about to be done. You're going to have all the off seasons. There's the seasons of buying and speculating and on new and modern players. Maybe it's just because of the swim lanes I'm in and my hobby experience and what I tailor my hobby experience to look like. I find it hard to get excited about modern players. And I wonder if the buying season, trying to flip, trying to, invest, whatever you speculate. There's a lot of that going on. I feel like I have a couple modern cards, but that's it. And maybe it's because I'm just really locked into like the cards, that I enjoy, which are older, and I chase a different thing. But I wonder, like, is that market still there? Is it still viable? Do you think there's still people collecting that kind of stuff and wanting to collect that kind of stuff?
There definitely, well, there certainly is, but I think that okay, so just my opinion, I need a story. I need a reason to grab on to kind of like a new player. I'll give a couple of examples. So for me, the only active player that I'm speculating on that I'm buying that I can think of just offhand is Caitlin Clark, a female basketball player, which, if you told me that, if you told me that 4 years ago, I'd be like, what? Like, no, if you said it to anybody, they'd be like, you're crazy or whatever, but part of, like, if I think about why am I buying Caitlin Clark, a big part of it is I think that it's an interesting story. She's a great talent. She's transformational for that particular league that's really needed help over a long period of time. They've struggled to gain traction. Now they finally have marketing power. They finally have a superstar. They finally have some traction and money coming in behind it. And the league doesn't know how to handle that. And the league is kind of screwing it up. So that's part of my story. That's part of the whole story though, for me. It's almost like it's a motivator. It's like kind of like I'm rooting for her to do well in this league, in part because the rest of the league hates her guts just because she's 22 years old, getting all the attention. All the 30-year-old players think that she's oh my God, she's so overhyped, this, that, or whatever, jealous and all that stuff. And she's handling it really well. She's handling it as humbly as she possibly can. Mm-hmm. And but there's just always some owner will say something stupid. There's always this new fresh thing that the WNBA and their affiliates do that is so stupid. So part of me is just buying the cards. Hell, she might start her own league and do whatever. But I'm just thinking this is a person that in pop culture, I feel like is going to be, now, assuming again, she doesn't get injured or, all that stuff. She, plays a long career and all of those things. I think that it could be kind of a turning point, kind of like a culture, there could be cultural significance, to her in basketball and women's basketball. So I think that's kind of fun. Am I going to hold her cards for the rest of my life? I don't know. Maybe not, probably not, but it's just for the right now, for the now. Like if I'm picking a player, especially if I compare across all the other major sports where I'm picking Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Shohei Ohtani, I guess I could buy their cards, but man, they're all mega expensive.
They're super expensive. Yeah. They're so
all the spec money is baked in, all the speculation money is baked into those guys. And I'm not saying that Caitlin Clark is cheap. She's not, but we're talking about a couple of sets. We're not how many cards does Ohtani have out of 2018? He's got a billion cards.
Yeah.
Right now she has Select and she's about to have Prism. There'll be some sets, but it's not going to be even in the same galaxy of supply as the male counterparts, the prospects that you would be looking at. Luka Doncic, it's so anyway, there's that. I need a story. Now for me, if you're going to go kind of what's something that could happen for me personally that would make me do stupid things and to buy and overpay for a card? Arch Manning. It's not an if, it's just when the New Orleans Saints draft Arch Manning #1 overall. We're going to be really bad for the next couple of years. We're going to tank for Arch. His grandfather, Archie, was our first really good quarterback going back to the early 70s. It's literally his grandson. It is set. It's like the prophecy has foretold, that he will be our quarterback. And if Arch Manning is a Saint, if there's whatever, Flawless or, there's Bowman first or whatever the hell there is, I'll be, buying into Arch Manning stuff. Now, am I going to spend, a bunch of money on it? No, but I mean, I'll go in and buy those cards, even though there's no, like it's probably an overhyped, overexpensive, player, card. But because it's Arch on my team, I'll buy some of that stuff.
And you need a story.
There's got to be a story.
There's got to be a story. Something that's going to get you interested in that particular player to make you feel good.
Why are you rooting for him? It's like, why are you rooting for that person?
Right. So, I mean, I have a Julio card. I got this really cool Topps Dynasty card. I just threw it up on Facebook or Instagram last night. Just came back from grading, and it's just a cool card. And that's the only one I have. I have another card I'm going to sell just because I'm going to wait to spring training. It's a Met prospect, and I figure, Mets are going to be pretty popular. But, yeah, other than that, I really don't have a connection to anything that's like drawing me in. But you're right with the football and some of the baseball, mainly football and basketball. It's so expensive. Like, so you don't want to, if you're going to have to spend the kind of money to get into a cool card of one of these prospects, you could take that same amount of money and go buy something that's truly going to grow in value over time. And that's the problem. And I think a lot of people, I mean, obviously, everybody already knows this at this point. People at least our age are kind of like, I'm not going to spend that money on that guy because it could be another Trey Lance or it could be another, Desmond Ritter or whatever. And you're like, God, I spent all this money on this guy. And there's the risk.
I will say, let me differentiate, because I'm not a baseball card prospector, but I want to differentiate that from football, basketball, because I do understand why guys are excited about a player coming up. They've been watching him. They've been following that player. It's a hot prospect or maybe an under the radar prospect where they're feeling like they're getting good pricing. And like you said, like, I think the Mets are going to be good. So maybe they kind of like this prospect kind of like follows that wave of hype. I completely, that's a whole different ball game for me. Like, that's a whole different prospecting game. I respect it because I think that's kind of a fun, because a lot of times, you're hoping that you get the Mike Trout first Bowman where, it's kind of an under the radar player that just happens to be like generational or just happens to pop off that season or gets called up and you happen to be right. Like, and then you can sell off the cards. So I respect that game. Like, to me, that's a different thing. That's like, hey, you love baseball. You're following the young prospects and you're kind of, trying to see if you're right on which ones are going to do well or not. To me, I totally get it. But I look at that as very, very different than quarterback prospecting. My God, like quarterback prospecting, I feel like there's 32 teams. They can only have one starter, and even their backup. So let's say we're talking about 50 players including the backup that might start or whatever, the third string. And I feel like it's like 30 fast horses every year where like any one of them could pop off. And then any one of them could have a career ending or, season ending injury or suck. So it's like you're just like throwing the dice out and hoping, whether you're picking Dak Prescott or Derek Carr or kind of like that second rate player, because you already have Mahomes and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and some of these guys that are already, they're proven they're winning awards every year, but their card prices reflect that, so then you're picking like, who you picking, like it's all overpriced.
Yeah. Baseball is a different animal because baseball,
I'm not worried about the cat. Don't worry about it. He or she can be on screen. No worries. Yeah, he's all good. You can have the cat. We'll have the cat in. That'll be the thumbnail. Just a cat, like.
Yeah, no, it's this Leo. He just wants to hang out. He's a freaking cool cat, but man, he just wants to hang out. It's just too good. You'll have the thumbnail so I could show my wife because I bought the cat for her for Christmas. But obviously, the kids, they all love it. So baseball's different because baseball, you have that time, right? Because you have like a product comes out, maybe they're really excited about the particular product. Don't press buttons. And if that happens, you can kind of watch the player like escalate over time, and you have like all these opportunities to exit, right? They get promoted to AA, they get promoted to AAA. They're making their major league debut, but then after they make their major league debut, you're kind of done because they got the patch card, right? That MLB patch card, the first one, the first game patch or whatever, the debut patch. That's a really important product. I think that's going to overtake all the other stuff. And I just feel like there's opportunities to get out and still be okay versus football. I mean, you're going to get the guy if he gets drafted and you got to just hope he works out in the pros, right?
Yeah.
and it has to work out. And if it doesn't, you're in trouble. So, yeah.
I mean, Mahomes really ruined everybody. Mahomes
Yeah.
ruined everybody because Mahomes was the guy that went from zero to hero, and his cards went from, you know, inexpensive to ballistic, because you have
Right.
the combination of him turning into like the Michael Jordan of football, and then you also had the pandemic money attached to that, like, rise. You know what I mean? So it was like the perfect storm for those cards to go absolutely ballistic. But to me, it's like I don't know where I would start if I was like, I'm going to go buy a Patrick Mahomes card. Be like, I have no idea where I would even start there. Or, you know, I mean, I love the 2017, the Prism rookie. I love the card. It's cool. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of like a PSA 10's $4,000, I think, or 3,500, $4,000. I don't know. Like, I had a PSA 9 of that. I had 3 of those like PSA 9s that I sold kind of on the way up. And so
It's
now,
kind of like but it's a attainable card, though. I mean, you
totally.
can still get that card where it's not killing you, and it gives
Yeah.
you a piece of that guy. But I mean, I feel like that there's enough of them out there, and they sell at a certain frequency that you can always get one, right?
Right. Yeah. And then I'm also just wondering, you know, if he does have an injury, if he does have an off year, does that give a little bit, like, I could just wait on it, you know, and then maybe it's 3,000 or maybe it's 2,800 or something, you know, it like drops a little bit. That's still like, I mean, we're still miles away of where that card used to be going back to 2020.
Right.
You know,
Right.
a PSA 10 was $400 in the fall of 2019. I know that's like every card. I know, I get it, but his big rise was the fall of 2019. I bought a bunch of his stuff summer of 2019, and now it continued to rise. That was the part that like nobody knew. I like tripled my money, and I was like, oh my God, it's time. Like, I got to get out of this. This is crazy.
Totally.
And then it just kept on going. But that's with so many cards, you know, going back in time. But Mahomes ruined it for everyone else, because now everyone's looking for the next Mahomes. And so then all of these guys come out and they're already priced at Mahomes prices. They're already priced like they're Patrick Mahomes coming out of the, like, some guy is just going to, I think there's the Black Finite 1/1 Jaden Daniels. Now, granted, I know that card for Mahomes would probably be a couple $1 million card, but someone's going to pay $200,000. The owner of Reddit, I think, popped up with a bounty of $200,000, you know, for that card for Jaden Daniels. Wow. I mean, good player, but good Lord, you know,
Like,
I mean,
that much though. I mean, yeah, good. That's
200 G's. Think about too. I mean, I understand it's probably his best card, 1/1 Black Finite rookie, but you could get a nice card of you could get like a really nice card of Michael Jordan for $200,000, or God, Ken Griffey Jr. You could probably get his best card with money left over. $200,000.
I think his 98 now out of I don't know. I think it's a very, very low number. I think that one's probably $250,000, $300,000 card. If I'm guessing,
it's in the ballpark.
Yeah, it's up there, and it's a lot. But see, that's another thing you're bringing up, though. You're bringing something up that's interesting.
52 tops. You get a high grade 52 tops maze, you know, or something, or you know, I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff in that price range.
Exactly. And one thing you just mentioned, though, gosh, it's great. We're segueing really well. We talked about like just 2020, 2021 prices that went like that. I feel like certain segments of cards are climbing back up. They're climbing back up. So I feel like that idea of like, hey, I'm going to get this card for nothing, and it's going to be, you know, I'm going to get this card when it's down in price, and in hopes that it'll climb back up. I feel like that's happening with certain cards.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
Yes, I do think that. I want to go back a minute, though. I want to also defend kind of the $200,000 bounty for the 1/1 Jaden Daniels. The owner of Reddit made that bounty. So, you know, if you're a gazillionaire, then this guy probably is not concerned if the card goes from 200,000 to 50,000 or whatever. If, you know, I don't know, falls off the map. In other words, he'll just write it off against like all, you know, against all the other things. This people is not like a guy.
People like that could do that.
So yeah, this is not somebody that's going to live and die by this card, you know, what Jaden Daniels' career working out. So let's also just kind of put that out there too. But yeah, no, I do agree. I think that there are certain cards that are, you know, certainly still climbing, of course. but it just feels like it just funnels up to the top. That's what it's like. Everyone's consolidating forever.
Okay, so okay, another great a good point.
Except for me.
Like, yeah, you're doing a great job with the points here, brother. Like, you're creating all these segues. Okay, well, if that's the case, do you feel like this consolidation effort by a lot of people, including myself, even though I'm continuing to add more cards, so I was like down to 10, now I'm back up to 17, but they're cards I want to keep, right? Nicer ones. Do you think the consolidation effort that's been going on for the past couple of years is what's driving the spikes in a lot of these cards in the 90s and 80s and the older cards, that flight to quality? Do you think that's what's driving that, or do you think there's a general interest in those kind of cards and people want them overall in the hobby?
Well, I feel like if I'm consolidating up, this is kind of a weird thing. So this is like a contradictory deal. And how I'm gonna say this. If I was going to consolidate up, would I rather have a high grade? Let's say, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but let's say it's a PSA 8 52 tops Willie Mays. I don't know what those run. Let me actually look it up real quick. I would rather, so if we're talking about a 52 tops Mays, hold on, I spelled tops wrong on Market Movers.
You're good. You're good.
All right. PSA 8. It's 110 grand. One was sold 2 months ago. Pops 60. And then, of course, you get into 9s and 10s and it's lower. That's actually a great comparison. I mean, think about cards that where somebody has spent 100 grand on a player. Like for me personally, and this is kind of, again, it's contradictory because do you want the black finite 1 of 1 of, what would be an example? Let's say it's Drew. I don't know. Let's say it's like Drew Brees, like black finite 1 of 1 or whatever. And that card
like a second tier hobby relevant guy.
A second
tier. Yeah, second tier.
Let's
overall.
We'll say Drew Brees. He's got a collector base. He's got accolades and everything else. He's got some hobby significance, but he's not Tom Brady and he's not Mantle. He's not Mace. So do you want? Let's say that's Breeze's best card. It's
Correct.
1 of 1 or whatever. Or one of them, like his top 5 best cards. Right. And you can get up for 100 grand. You can get into it, and you never see them. They never sell. That's all. Because remember, that's what a lot of folks are doing, including myself in certain circumstances.
Me too. Absolutely.
But for me, if I'm thinking about like shit, like what if I have to sell this thing? I've got a family. Like, what happens if 5 years from now I'm like I got to move off of it? I probably go with that 52 tops Maze and a PSA 8 is 110,000. Now there are 60 of them. So this is not a mega ultra rare card. There's also SGC graded copies, but it's a top 5. If we're talking about post-war baseball cards, most iconic cards.
Huge card.
You're talking about Mantle and Mays 52 tops. And then you look at the Bowman's rookies. Yeah. These are like massive post-war cards. Yeah. I would go with the Mays all day long. And that's with Breeze being my guy. That's my PC guy. I'm a 37-year Saints fan. But if I have to put 100 grand into a card, it's not going to go into Breeze. It's going to go to Willie Mays. I'm just using him that's just an example.
I think we both are on the same page with that. And I think that's what I've been doing a lot of. If I first off, you think, okay, the relevance of the card, is the card iconic? Is it an iconic player? Look at the track record of that particular card in the set. Are there going to be more of them? Probably, obviously not. Then you backdoored copies, all that crap. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff with vintage. You do have to worry about counterfeit, but and trimming and alterations and all that kind of stuff. But outside of that, if everything's all equal, that's where you probably aim. You aim for that big stuff. You're going to take everything that you have and go, because I think my collection right now, based on what Card Letter thinks it's worth, all a bit different, but roughly around like $190,000 or $200,000. That's what all the cards I have, like 17 cards, and that's what they're all worth. And a lot of them haven't sold very much. None of them, like I did a count, like 13 out of the 18 cards I have, 14 out of the 18 cards I have do not have any cards for sale currently and have sold so rarely that it's almost impossible to realize what their value is. But those are the kind of cards, and those took a long time to curate. It took a while to get there. So anyway, the point is, like, I feel like if I were to take all of those and sell them all and buy just one, yes, I would go towards 52 Tops, 51 Bowman. I'd get a Mantle or a Maze. I'm with you. I'd get one of those two players. I wouldn't mess around with anything past that. I would go if I really wanted to take that all that money, and if I didn't want to put it in a bank or put it in a CD or invest in the stock market, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to put it into this because I think it's going to appreciate slowly over time. It's not going to do any of these big spikes, but it's going to just keep doing this, right? Will it outpace the S&P 500? I don't know. Let's just pretend we kind of want to collect the cards too, because if we just want to invest the money, then go invest the money. But we love cards, and if they can serve two purposes. How fun is that, right?
Right.
That's where I go, and I wonder if eventually that stuff, the people that are buying these types of cards that are modern, are spending that kind of money, where you can still go and get a card like that with the same kind of money. They're probably like, well, that's boring. I don't want to do that. If they have that money, you're right, they probably have a lot of it, and they can just afford to lose it, throw it around, and who cares? And it's not as exciting because you don't get to watch that player play every Sunday or every week or whatever it may be. I get that. I can totally understand that. And that's what kind of pulls me back and forth. I'm like, well, I want to have some skin in the game. I want to be watching somebody right now and enjoying it and going, oh, that guy had a great game. Let's see what his card prices are doing. Not that you're going to sell it, but just to kind of be excited about how you have a piece of that player. But the better part of me goes, oh, I want to go back and get the stuff from when I was younger, or the stuff that from, it kind of speaks to me more, the players that speak to me more, or if I really want to be smart, go back into vintage. There's that yin and that pulling back and forth for me that happens. And I do have a few cards that sell
kind of
often. So
there's kind of like it's like risk reward. I think it's like, if you have we'll use that Drew Brees as an example. It's kind of a secondary player. If 10, 15, 20 years down the road, I have to hope, and I guess you could say the same about vintage baseball, but I think it's just less of a hope, because I think that's just, I know a lot of people are like, no one's going to care about vintage baseball down the road. You're collecting more of the history, the collector base, the deepest collector base in the whole hobby. Even if they are aging, it's all those cards are still going to matter. I don't want to say all those cards, but 52 Tops cards will matter in 20 or 30 years, most definitely.
Oh yeah.
But I guess you have to hope, the trend of people chasing after that 1 of 1 or that out of 5 or that whatever card that you paid $100,000 for. Now, maybe what happens is that's the trend. And so over time, you do have more buyers. But what if you don't? So then maybe you paid $100,000, you valued it at $100,000. In the future, what if someone else looks at it as, oh man, Breeze was great, but it's almost like me looking at like Fran Tarkenton. Man, Fran Tarkenton, he owned all the passing records at one point. He was great. Now, how many people care about Fran Tarkenton? And will it be the same for like a guy like Drew Brees? Maybe not. But it's a risk reward thing, because if you have a 1 of 1, if you have kind of one of these kind of top cards, and people are into it and they're still consolidating up into it, then it could be worth multiples more down the road. But then you also risk, it could just be, hey, that's a 1 of 1 of Fran Tarkenton. Cool. But, I'd rather have 52 Tops Willie Mays or whatever. I'd rather have something that's classic.
Yeah. Man, this is actually really, really interesting. You're making me think. It would almost be fun to put together an episode where we rank like the safety meters on cards. I know no card's really safe technically, but
yeah, it'll be a fun exercise. We should do
that. Would be fun. Like, you literally, like, we put it together and you come up with your list, I come up with my list.
And chat can kind of comment on, the commenters can comment on, like, did we get this right? What did you think? Kind of the safety meter. How did we do?
Yeah, maybe we go to the workshop and we come out with, like, here are our 4 tiers of cards based on risk, reward, and safety, on spending, a good amount of money. Meaningful is different for everybody, but yeah. Just like here's where I feel like if you're going to park X money, you probably find buying into these players and these sets, and then kind of go down the line and then it might be a pretty robust project, but I think it could be really interesting, and it would spark a lot of conversation, create a lot of engagement.
Yeah. Why don't we start with 5 cards? Maybe we can do this next week or over the next couple of weeks. Let's try to do it for the next couple of weeks. And since you're kind of 90s, you're the 90s guy, like, all that stuff. Why don't you pick 5, and also modern? If you want to throw in modern, if there's some newer card too that you want to throw in there, first Bowman, refractor, auto, whatever, let's throw that in. And then I'll pick vintage stuff. to like compare up against it. So you'll pick a card, but you'll have to just tell me like value wise, like this card's about 50 grand. And then I'll pick a vintage card that's about 50 grand. And we'll kind of go up. We'll do kind of like different price points.
Yeah, I think that would be a fun exercise because I think when you're looking at just if you're consolidating into stuff, it's kind of an interesting practice. And I think, you and I have both been like immersed in educating ourselves on what has the long-term potential. If we're going to sell this, that, and the other to get this, if we're going to consolidate into that, we really want to make it count. Less cards, but more meaningful ones. We've done the due diligence to make sure we're not just buying random stuff. And there's all this different, all these variables that go into it. But something to think about because we'll probably wrap up here in a second. Something to think about though, when we talk about long-term, value and opportunity for a card to actually like grow in value. You have to think about how much longer are we going to be alive? I know it's a morbid thing to think about, but it's like we're passing these down to our children, most likely the ones that we're
going to live forever, Dennis. We're going to live forever. We know that.
Sorry, I forgot. I didn't get that memo. I just wonder, like we think about that so much. We're like, well, wait. I want to make sure. So I can understand the newer modern cards. You're going to want to find that card that you and your kids can still appreciate because you're kind of bridging that gap because we're into it now. Our kids are into it. So now you've got a bigger runway for the modern. I get why people do that. I mean, Mahomes is a perfect case of that. I get it. But then you have like the cards like the Mantles and the Mays and the Ruths and the Gehrigs and all. Obviously, Honus Wagner will always be because of this the tribal knowledge and the history is there. It's already been it's just there. And I think antiquities are going to be a big deal later on anyway, no matter what. It's always people love going way back. But I think even that older stuff is still going to be relevant long after we're gone. Even if none of these people ever saw these people play, blah, 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 because we never have, and it's still relevant to us. And there's enough of a boom to kind of give us a break. The late 80s had the boom, the 80s, and then now you have this big boom in the 2020s. So every like 10 years you get another one, and it kind of reinforces what was great before, and you kind of keep re-cementing stuff. But I feel like that vintage stuff will have lasting power regardless. It's the stuff, the modern, the 90s and all that. I mean, how much of the stuff's going to matter to people beyond us after we're gone? Who's going to matter, right? Who's going to be – and that's why transcendent athletes are important because that's – you always feel like, well, transcendent athletes, they cross all the borders. Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, Griffey, you can go on and on. Brady. I mean, people are going to be talking about Brady forever, right? As long as Brees stays up in the record books, yeah, they'll talk about him, right? And you have a regional fan base. Purdue, he played there, and he's the man in New Orleans. So, I mean, he's going to have that. But outside of the regional fandom, I think you're right. We have to think about the time. Like, is it going to even matter to us down the road if we're not even here? What are these cards worth? So, and if we're even going to have them, I mean, gosh, it seems that I sell cards so often. Like, it's so silly to even talk about long term. But I do have about 5 or 6 cards that there's no way I sell them. I would liquidate everything, and I'd even probably sell my car before I'd sell the cards. They're so rare and so cool. I just feel like they're only going to go up. That's how passionate I am about them. But anyway, something to think about as we put this list together, these cards together, and we talk about it next week or the week after, is what does longevity even mean? We have to like identify what that means.
Yeah, and kind of and I guess what the argument I guess is high grade 80s and going back, high grade 80s and going back versus 90s inserts, which I think 90s inserts are kind of in their own category, like the mid to late 90s inserts. But then a lot of people are spending a ton of money, and you know this too, on Black Finite 1 of 1, new stuff. I mean, hell, the new 20. I watched 2024 Prism, Brian Thomas Jr., he's a wide receiver for the Jags, great player, 1 of 1. He had a great rookie season. The 1 of 1 Black Finite sold on eBay for $14,000 and change. I mean, with tax, it was over 15 grand. Now, you could, I mean, I'm sure you could whip up like a bunch of nice Griffey cards for 15 grand or Barry Bonds, or, you know, if you want to go football, hell, you could get all sorts of high grade vintage. Doesn't matter. But the point is so you've got these different buckets, and there's huge premiums being paid for golds out of 10 and 1 of 1 Black Finites today. What is, how is that going to stack up? How is that going to land down the road? Maybe it'll be fine, but anyway, that we could spend a couple of different episodes on it.
Yeah, we'll spin this off for sure. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack when it comes to that. We now have our assignments. Thank you guys for joining us. It was 40 minutes. We thought, hey, this could go 15 minutes or 40 minutes. Usually when we're just kind of going off the cuff, we tend to go. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, guys and gals out there. Comment below. What do you think? I mean, throw some comments in the comment section of what you think cards are based on everything we talked about. And what do you feel like a long-term? I mean, what is long-term for you? And what does that look like to you? Is it like, hey, there's a sunset at about 10 years, 15 years, and I'm selling everything. I'm not leaving anything to anybody, or I don't have anybody to leave anything to. So I want to make sure I set this up just right. I have these cards in my will. I mean, however that works. I know it's a little bit morbid to talk about that, but when you think about placing your money somewhere and you feel like I'm going to keep this for a long time, and you're not just making the decision because you think that it's just because you enjoy the card. Of course you do, but there's also, when you're spending that kind of money, you have to think about that, and everybody does, and we all know it. So just, yeah, give us some feedback. How do you look at all this, and how do you approach these subjects? We'll talk to you guys next week or the week after. We'll have this. We'll dive into this. I think it'll be fun.
All right. Thanks, DPZ. We'll talk to you again later. We'll see you next week.
See you, everybody.
All right. Bye.